Hello again, welcome back to the True Church of Jesus Christ with his Latter-day Saint, and we're going to talk about it's not what enters that pipe hole or the mouth that defiles and makes a lie. And what does all that mean anyways? So while we're trying to graft ourselves back onto the tree of life, we are, or at least in this talk, all these talks, this is the hardcore of hardcores. This is the teaching of God, the teaching of all ages. In God's classroom, it says that we're one consciousness, but you're not that one consciousness. You don't know that I am in the midst of you. I dwell all the way up here in this eternal tree, and you're down as a branch cut off from me and who is experiencing this wheel. So this wheel is all about John chapter 10, death. Man is enclosed with death, the tunic of flesh. But behind this death and this darkness and this material world, this falling away from God, we have the opportunity to come back into conscious union with God and for God to lead our lives for us here in this realm, our purpose and who we are. The name of God is very important. So taking up this study is taking up your true identity, which is who you are. And everybody wants to find out what their own purpose in life is. Well, that's what this is all about. Your only purpose is to come back home to God. The human beings clothed in this material sense. See, what makes sin, or what makes one already, you could say, away from God? First is that original sin. So that's what the religion's all about. Telling you that you're a branch cut off, and man is already away from the kingdom of God, and away from the light body that Adam fell away from and originally had. So we could look back and reference this in the books 1 and 2 of Adam and Eve. When Adam fell down, he fell down like a seed off of that eternal tree. And he grew out of this light kingdom and out of this light body and out of this mind of God. See, he could remember, as he says in the scriptures, remember the angels and remember being in the garden. And that's very significant because we can cultivate this consciousness of God, but we're not going to see any angels. So this is a real deal about God consciousness. What enters that mouth is very important, but what comes out of that mouth. See, also Jesus Christ says, what you entertain in your heart is ultimately what defiles your mind or defiles your union with God. See, grafting yourselves back on the tree is following God's way. God's mystical way in Matthew chapter 6 is there for a reason. So not taking thought is this idea that nothing can enter your mouth that'll make a lie. So let's talk about substances. In the Orient, this was a very hot topic, especially around the time when there was actual God consciousness there. So this is like even before the Christ time, when the void was flourishing and the wisdom of Confucius and Lao Tzu was spreading around. Either way, practicing God, taking up the name of God. Now, getting into the religion, right? Diet was a kind of like a fad, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like something you had to do, like a requirement, which is, to me, it's very strange why people would, come with different rhetoric on what you have to eat in order to please God. So, like, you could say the Arabs, right? They're not Muslims, but either way, you can't eat pork if you're a Muslim, quote unquote. Why is that? When Jesus Christ is telling you it's not what enters that mouth that defiles your consciousness or defiles your connection that's grafting back onto the tree. So this stigma, that's what I was trying to say, this religious stigma, this dogma of eating or drinking or smoking or taking quote-unquote drugs, either street drugs or pharmaceutical. This is what this topic is really all about. Because day by day by day, year by year by year, when you grow with God, you're just going to use a specific wisdom in order to obtain God. So remember, what you think, as it says in Matthew chapter 6, Do not take thought for your life, because who by taking thought in your prayers can obtain God? No man, quote unquote, knows how to obtain God. That's why God itself is the soul of all souls. And that's why deep within inside you, you have to come in contact with this way that leads you back home to God. So God only knows the way to God, and God is the light that shines in the darkness. But you can come into contact with this consciousness in this life. That's what's known as the pearl of great price. And a more telling about that is the fact that everyone's an individual, and everyone else as well fell down into this darkness or into this death. And now they have to grow like a weed in the ground with the sun. They have to grow back up to God, and God will meet them. So that's what the union's all about. So John 14, verse 21. If you follow the commandments, if you follow the way, I will make myself known to you, the void. So that is the pearl of great price. There's a definite experience with God, and it's not a psychedelic experience that you could obtain by putting things in your mouth. It's not what enters the mouth that can get you spiritual consciousness. So you can't do any drugs. You could try, and many people have, and they've had quote unquote spiritual experiences. But what they've had was just pictures or hallucinations. Because the real, see, that's the thing that the age has lost is truth. The one consciousness and what it entails, what it's all about. There is real wisdom, the way. That's what Jesus Christ is all about, because he is that Spirit of God that we're trying to connect ourselves with. He is the Word made flesh. This way. He's Lao Tzu's Tao made flesh. So he knows the way. He is this way. But men have lost this inside themselves. See, like Adam did when he fell away from God. He lost his connection with God because of what he started eating. He started eating things of this world. And here's a big secret to this creation, is that there was a divine intervention. God had to intercede and make this metabolism in order for this world's matter to convert into energy. So that's why there's a big stigma about eating and being pure and keeping your consciousness pure. Let's say by just eating vegetables or staying away from animals or staying away from smoking or staying away from this or, oh my Lord. That's where all that comes from, because the high-end literature is just that, because God provided them with the bare minimum at least. But this falling away like Adam, he could still remember. And that's what his son Seth was in this tradition. The clairvoyant consciousness, the keeping of this one consciousness, the doorway, the void, the emptiness, the nothingness, and the formless. That's what we're trying to obtain in this pearl of great price. So that's deep within you, and that's a definite experience. But it's not what enters the mouth that defiles and makes a lie. So what you eat is not going to obstruct you from obtaining this way. What you smoke is not going to obstruct you in obtaining this way. What you drink is not going to obstruct you from obtaining this way as well. That's important, because in this creation, man has to survive. And he has to survive off of God. See, that's why he can't take thought for his life at all. And that's a very big pearl. And if you live by that, like John chapter 15, abiding in me, that's how you graft yourself on the tree of life. And John chapter 10, see, we know, we're being trained that God's in the midst of us. It's our own individual I and I am. But there's a great I am, you see. We're being taught about Jesus Christ, the great I am, which is the boat that takes us across in order to meet this light that enlightens all men. So, when you're alone by yourself, you're going to have to fight the world, basically. Because the gospel truth is just that. It's not what enters the mouth that could stop you or obstruct you. And if you need more proof of that, there's Acts chapter 10 about a vision. Peter had a vision, and at about noontime, so this is Acts chapter 10, verse 9. The next day, men were traveling along and approaching a city. Peter went up to a roof to pray. He became hungry and asked for some food. and while it was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw the sky open, and an object came down that looked like a big canvas. It lowered to the ground by its four corners. Inside it were all the earth's four-legged creatures and reptiles and birds of the sky. So all the animals. See, Peter was a good Jew, and the Jews can't eat certain animals. So God says, a voice said to him, "Get up, Peter, and slaughter. Eat it." And he answered, "Sir, this is unthinkable." You see, this Puritan attitude was just the law of dietary, it's just the law. And that's what Christ came to absolve us from, this law. This idea that eating is going to do something to please God or not please God. So Peter didn't catch this vision yet. And this is after the Christ came down. This is Acts. So this is the chapter of Acts. And this is chapter 10. And he still is a good Jew. That's because this mind hasn't been cultivated yet, even in Peter at that time. He hasn't cultivated the one consciousness, the emptiness. And he hasn't taught. Well, he's taught, but that's the thing. Peter was a coward. He denied the Christ 3 times while he was sitting with him. So this eating, anything unclean or unclean, I've made everything. So even the plants, right? In my time with God, so in the year 2017, when I hurt myself, I wasn't making any money, and I had to stop my lifestyle habits. So that's diminishing on smoking. I smoked marijuana, but I didn't drink. In my lifetime, I didn't take up drinking at all because of, you could say, working out in the gym. I could train really hard and achieve results and still maintain this smoking. And also be taught these teachings, because it's not what enters the mouth that defiles and makes a lie. So you smoking things. So in the year 2017, I had to diminish smoking because I didn't have any money. And that, for me, cleared out a lot of my consciousness because of it was the dependency, first on the mind, and then a little bit of clarity came. So by just sobering out a little bit. And it was just from the fact of abstination in general. So just abstaining from those things. And I realized that it doesn't help. It doesn't help anyways. Either if I do smoke or I do not smoke, I'm still in this situation with a whole lot of problems. And I know I don't know God. So that's one thing I reasoned with myself and with these teachings. Yes, he's true. It's not what enters the mouth, but I was rotten on the inside. So in my heart, I was contemplating anger. So we could contrast obtaining the virtues. It's very important what comes out of that mouth, not necessarily what goes inside that mouth. Abstination is important, but on my case, it came on behalf of just, you could say, ill circumstances. And it's very good to abstain from things. So like if you are a smoker, if you smoke marijuana, if you are on this path, if anything obstructs you, so let's say if you smoke like 10 cigarettes a day and you can't focus or you can't concentrate, you can't study, you can't read, or you can't pray, get into an atmosphere of silence, because remember, not taking thought for your life. If you're in this teaching and you're getting taught not to take thought for your life, and there's a spiritual consciousness now that you have to rely on, if smoking, drinking causes you paranoia, on top of this not taking thought for your life, then it's not advisable for certain people to smoke or drink because the consciousness isn't stable enough. But if people have a stable consciousness and they could smoke, see, the Taoists, on the other hand, too, on the other side of the globe, were drinkers of wine. It doesn't say in the doctrine too much about smoking marijuana and practicing the Tao. It's all because of if you can't focus. See, smoking marijuana causes distractions as well too, especially sexually. So if you're distracted about the other sex because of smoking marijuana, then that is a chance for you to actually discipline and self-control that drive. Because that drive and that urge is heightened and stimulated with certain things. Now, that's the same thing too with Puritans, right? So now what? If you can't smoke, then what's the next step? You can't drink coffee? So like the yogis in India or something like that are all miscellaneous. Because we're not relying on these substances to give us this comforter. So that's the idea. When I was sitting here, I realized I wasn't getting the comforter if I smoke or if I drink or even if I hang out with people. There was always something in the back of my mind, like the problem that I was in, and it wasn't giving me the rest or the peace. The world cannot give me the rest or the peace. And none of the things in it anymore at a certain point. Crossing the line, you could say, either by accident. So I made the example in the other video. This is the idea of grafting ourselves back to the tree, even in the worst conditions possible. So when you're down and out and there's nobody to help you and you got a diseased body or a diseased mind, you could smoke your brains out all day. You could drink your brains out. None of that is going to settle you down, and none of that's going to help your problems whatsoever. But God will. Grafting ourselves back and trusting in the teaching and trusting in a proper teacher. So if you don't trust me because I smoke, then that's why I gave Joel Goldsmith, Joseph Benner, Rudolf Steiner. I gave other sources and Jesus Christ. He's the ultimate source. And since I obtained, see in this path too, it's all about the obtainment. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. God didn't really care what I was drinking or eating or smoking, but he really cared about how I was thinking and how I was feeling. So in this situation, it wasn't very comfortable. I was very angry. And I realized it didn't matter if I smoked a little bit or smoked a lot. It's just sometimes you're going to get angry or get frustrated. It's just like sitting in jail. You know, being a good little boy when you got nothing in a little small room, you're going to be a little bit flustered, shaken about a little bit. And then you get to realize too, it doesn't matter what you do. You can't just get this peace. You're like a bird in a cage being rattled around. So that's what I want to bring to the table. You could still smoke. You could still drink. But we're not having fun. Why are we not having fun? Well, in my case, I wasn't having any damn fun. Being broken in body, and having everybody leave my life and thinking I'm an idiot and a failure and just a shame. Yeah, I wasn't having fun, you see. This is the idea now that it's not what enters the mouth, but it's what comes out of that mouth and what we're really thinking. So I knew I wasn't having fun. I knew I wasn't having a comforter. But I also learned a tremendous amount of discipline and self-control and trust in myself. And at the same time, we're taught that we're not looking for anything superficial out of this spiritual teaching. Like, we're not looking for angels or demons or any hobgoblins or ghosts. So also too, like liquor, beer, that doesn't inebriate the consciousness enough to promote a psychedelic impact. And neither does marijuana either. Certain pharmaceutical drugs actually do have a psychoactive effect that might make images on one's mind, so like seizures or whatever those conditions are. Psychotic effects, so where people will see things, flashing images or whatever. Yeah, you'll never get that in meditation and prayer. That's not what God consciousness is all about as well. And that's also what we're taught here too. It's the virtues that get us to God consciousness. That's what actually grafts ourselves back onto the tree. So we'll go back to the Orientals. There's like a few movies where a guy was a very excellent martial arts master in his temple, but the other monks did not find his drinking too kindly, and they kicked him out of the temple. He ended up living in a cave, still drinking, but God is with him. Why? Because this is what happens. people are really talented, and God doesn't really care about what you drink or what you eat or what you smoke. It's how you conduct yourself under these virtues and principles, under his name, suffering under his name. So the brothers weren't too brotherly towards their brother to forgive and tolerate his drinking. They viewed it as a problem, but not to him. He was the expert martial artist in the temple. So how is his drinking a problem? Because they're taught this dogma about eating and drinking that, defiles your soul, because men are inebriated in these states. But a guy that's drinking and like a monk, it has the virtues of God. He's not going to hurt anybody. He's kind, friendly. See, he practices the virtues while he's sipping on this drink all day long. So the drunken masters out there that are just poor. See, there's a few movies in the martial arts community that have just guys sleeping out in the street drinking, but they're Zen masters. They've obtained the void. That's why they're out there sleeping in the street, because they rely on this one consciousness, the one. And they know no amount of drinking is going to obtain the one. You have to follow the way. Following the way is what obtains the one, and then you live under the one. You shelter yourself under the one with your same thoughts, with your same deeds, with your same actions. So for the people struggling, like let's say if you smoke marijuana and you want to continue smoking marijuana and you think that's going to obstruct you with God or not please God, if you smoke marijuana and you start getting depressed or angry, that's the thing. It's now controlling yourself and understanding that these feelings aren't something that God wants me to feel. See, that's why the virtues in Galatians 5, not taking thought for our lives in Matthew chapter 6, and now setting our sights on the kingdom of God, which is only by patience, sitting there now, tolerating yourself, practicing forgiveness. See, the heart matters. And then what comes out of that mouth is what will please God if you're contemplating these inner virtues within inside your heart and mind. So people realize this. It doesn't matter how much you smoke, it will never ever give you any virtues. It doesn't matter how much you drink, it won't give you any virtues. It doesn't matter what you eat, it won't give you any virtues. Even if you abstain from smoking, if you stop smoking, it won't give you any virtues. Why? Because you have to practice the virtue. So stopping drinking isn't going to give you any virtues. It's not going to please God. You have to stop drinking. If that is a problem for your life, quote unquote, because the other people took shelter under another life called the Great I Am. And they shelter themselves under the one. See, that's the pinnacle of understanding who's obtained this consciousness and who hasn't. That was the biggest thing when I watched the Zen master, the Bodhidharma. He had to go back because he was in India. He's an Indian prince. And here's the ancient truth. Remember, matter is an illusion. What takes place outside and inside you is not real. That's why it's not what enters the mouth. It's always what you think and do and act upon. And your feelings matter. So your feeling state produces the virtues or opens up the way, because it's in the spirit that men have to practice the virtues day by day, second by second. And by doing this, that's what, remember, come to me, all who are weary, burdened, and find life difficult. So like the guys were out in the street, drunk, no food, no money back then. It's the same thing now. But they sheltered themselves under the Great One. So it looks like they're bums now. Oh, but they got a huge smile on their face when before they were miserable with their drink. Do you know? Well, I've noticed because I watched a lot of these movies. Then they have a huge smile on their face because they've been introduced to the one. Now they can sit out in the curb, drink, and with a big smile on their face because they've obtained the one, and now they could take shelter under that. Where before they just took shelter under their alcoholism. Now practicing the virtues. See, that's John chapter 15. I will prune the branches, the feelings and the thinkings, and I'll clear up your consciousness. God does that. You're your own individual being. And like I found out in the year 2017, all the way up to the year 2022, was when God in his mercy made his contact with me. And that's when I received the one, the empty, the formless, and the void. Now I could take shelter there. Before that, it didn't matter how much I smoked or how much I ate or how much I did not smoke and did not eat. There was more a lot of doing not, because I was poor, so I didn't have anything to smoke or anything to eat. So this abstination is very important because practicing the virtues opens up the way anyways. And yes, you can't just now, let's say if you smoke or drink, you can't ride the material boat of that alcohol experience, like that little buzz that you get. You got to work out of just relaxing. That's why in the Orient, you have to be a serious thinker, because that seriousness and that determination alone keeps you sober while you're drinking. That's why there's expert alcoholics, because their mind and consciousness, you could say like Hunter H. Thompson, that guy from Fear and Loathing, he just smokes and drinks all day and everything too, like acid, whatever. But he's a psychonaut, which means he tries to stay sober while he is doing an insurmountable amount of things to inflict his consciousness. See, that's what a psychonaut is. And that's not, that was practiced also in the Orient. See, these guys were friggin' consciousness masters. That is called like obsessiveness. And if you're trying to test your sobriety under, see, that's why guys would go under a bed of nails and smash themselves, because they're trying to test their they're trying to test their virtues. It's impossible, because God is the only virtue, and that's the real truth. You're not pure. You see, there's nothing you could think that'll get you God consciousness. So displaying things like smashing yourself with things to test the sobriety of yourself, or the determination of your mind, the strength of your mind, that's still not the way. That's still not spiritual consciousness. So don't get fooled out in the world either when you got this monk sitting there and you think there's like the one in Guinness Book of World Records where the guy's like melting things around him, like, because his body heat. That's not spiritual consciousness. That's nothing to do with spiritual consciousness. There is literally nothing you could think, and no visible effect too, because God is a spirit and you have to worship God in spirit and in truth. So he's not going to melt the ice for you. He's not going to give you these drinks where you could just drink all day either. See, that's following the wave. If you can't provide these things for yourself, then I wasn't going to go out and beg for them. Remember, it tells you not to take thought for your life, and I am your supply. And you have to take shelter under the great invisible I am. And that means, yes, under these things, right, you're going to have to express, diligence and determination in your thoughts and not let these substances bother you. It's the same thing like fasting, right? So abstaining from food and hunger. This is why the hunter was cultivated in consciousness as well. Because you have to sit there for hours and hours and hours and starve and starve and starve and still pay attention and fixate your consciousness on the nothing. Well, there's nothing there, you see? You have to stay patient and wait for your food to arrive. So you have to focus on the nothing. You have to, that's why the hunters, the warriors, develop the void first. because they were the ones that relied on that for their survival. Waiting around and wait, drawing out the sense, you see? The sense of what? That there's a person. You're only focusing on just the kill. And that's what our prayers are. You have to focus your mind on just the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness can't comprehend. And then you have to literally just be determined and not taking thought for your life. So prayer is more like just a listening attitude. But you're listening within for this light to make itself known to you. So that's kind of like building the mentality of waiting for your kill, the hunter, sitting there. You're going to have to do that. And that takes patience, tolerance, forbearance. That's a tremendous amount of spiritual progress if you're able to sit at your home and just imagine the hunter waiting for his kill. That's also what practicing Zen is, or practicing Matthew chapter 6. That's exactly what Matthew chapter 6 is. Don't take thought for your life, because I am in the midst of you already. So you have to sit there and cultivate patience and prayer while you're being determined in your mind to expect this quote unquote kill, or this moment with God. And this builds up the atmosphere of God by you being determined in prayer, just in a listening attitude, not taking thought for things, and being like an expert hunter actually, and just hearing. So a few seconds are going to go by, and it'll irritate this mortal consciousness of yours that wants to do things, and it wants to think things, it wants to hear things. But now you're taking up this way. And just imagine the hunter. See, this is why the cultivation was so important. You can't rely on anything else but your own consciousness for the kill, for your own survival. That's why you have to rely on God for your survival. And there's a way to do it. Or else, right? Let's say if that moment of time comes when the animal comes into the hunter's periphery, or when he wants to think about something, right? Or maybe he misses his wife and he wants to have sex with her. Oh, there comes the animal. And his opportunity goes right away because his senses, see, he wasn't focused, determined. He missed his chance. That's why it's important for us never to do that. We always have to be at the door of our consciousness. For God, you could say, he's going to be the deer, and now we're the hunter. Or it's like God hunting us. That doesn't matter either way. You can't miss out on that opportunity by thinking about other things. That's why there's a way to do it. So if smoking things distracts you, then you have to not smoke things. But you could build determination so that if you do smoke things, you could push past these substances that cloud your mind. See, like Hunter H. Thompson, he could do those things that could push past like an ungodly amount of drugs inside his head and still try to be sober-minded and serious-minded and approach life. See, he wasn't a goofball walking around and being an idiot. In the movie, Johnny Depp was just a little over-dramatic, but in his real-life character, he was a very intelligent guy. And you couldn't tell if he was on drugs or not. He was very sober-minded. No one could actually tell if he was drunk. He said he would drink like 15 beers, walk around, people wouldn't even know anything. So guys cultivate, see, the sobriety consciousness anyways by pounding back so much substances. And God is still in the back of your consciousness, not being discovered. So Matthew chapter 9, that shovel. See, it doesn't matter if you drink 100 beers. You still haven't shoveled, not even one time. And the 100 beers are going to stop you from shoveling a little bit, or maybe digging in all the way. See, that's what we're looking for now. Perfect strikes to dig in. So if drinking stops you from digging in all the way, and prayer and reading, then you have to abstain on your level of abstination. If it obstructs you from striking with your full force and power into this gospel of grafting yourself back onto the tree. If smoking makes you paranoid, like if you smoke and you're at home and you're scared of life and everything like that, if you're weak in faith and you lack spirit entirely, then I mean, that's what this whole work is all about as well. Cultivating spirit. So you're not sitting there terrified and at home by yourself, which a lot of people are. And then they turn on the TV and the fear doesn't go away. See, that terror doesn't just go away if you smoke. It doesn't go away if you drink. It doesn't go away if you turn on this or want to hear that. You have to practice that hunter Zen, Matthew chapter 6, not taking thought. That's prayer. That's how you cultivate prayer. So God can make itself known to you. Because who by taking thought, who by smoking things, drinking things, eating things, could obtain their immortality. So if I could smoke a pound of dope a day and achieve immortality, I don't, like, everyone would have done that already. Or drinking, like, oh, the ambrosia of the gods. Yes, drinking something is going to give me my immortality with Christ. No, you still see a human corpse walking around. We would have an immortal, but that's not how it works. It's all in the spirit. You live forever with God, not in the flesh. So there's nothing you could eat, drink. Yes. Smoke? Nope, can't do that. Marriage? See? Entangling yourself with your senses? A woman? The Da Vinci Code's a lie. You can't have sex with girls and obtain your immortality. See, that's not what God wants. That's chastity. You have to remain chaste in order to walk the way as well. So it's difficult with a partner in your life. Let's say if you've defiled yourself in marriage, quote unquote, and just committed all types of sodomy, anal and oral sex because you just want to do whatever you want. See, you're going to have to confront your mind with the way. And if you don't want to conform with the way because you think whatever is better, then that's why God can't reward you with the one consciousness. Because you still want to cling to sin. See, it's not what enters the mouth. There's no substance on earth that's sinful. That's what he gave to Peter, that revelation. Don't call anything that I made unclean. Just man's a fool. He'd rather smoke his brains out, drink his ass off, and then think this life is okay. He doesn't want to take teachings from God anyways. So that's the idea too. Like, it's all about what you take in your heart, in your mind, out of your mouth. Not with the things of this world. That's the idea. Your spirit as well is not from this world. My kingdom is not from this world. Matter is an illusion. So why worry about smoking this or drinking that if you haven't even obtained the peace, the rest, or the sense of security, protection, the secret place of the Most High? I knew I wasn't getting the secret place of the Most High if I was high, because I was still in fears and anguish, terror. So in the year 2022, the one came, and now I know what the secret place of the Most High is. And that's what I'm trying to say too. I don't smoke my brains out all day because it abstains me from praying. You get too tired. Yes, you start doing the things now to cultivate God consciousness more. And it's better that way as well too, because God clears up your intelligence from this. There's a huge benefit following God and grafting yourself on the tree. But the way's not with your mouth. What goes inside there. It's more what goes inside the two ear holes and comes out of the mouth of your heart. The two ear holes are the gateway to the mind. And then out into your world is what you contemplate out of your heart by attaching yourself onto the tree. And that's the true way. So that's what is hidden in the world. It creates a lot of dogma when people want to try to, do a diet, and they try to think that a diet is going to please God. God doesn't really care about your diets, especially if you're in your sins, doing who knows. See, the commandment, not loving the Lord thy God, that's a sin enough. If you love, I don't know, smoking more or drinking more, that's not following the commandments of love. Ah, yes. So if you love your steak dinner more than God, your own consciousness, that's why he doesn't give spiritual revelations to people that love their own sense of nonsense, their own sense of worship, entitlement, privilege. In the Colburn Bible, God doesn't really care about your worship at all. He said it's all useless and in vain. That's also what he told the Jews in the Old Testament. I'm going to destroy all your new moons and holy days and holidays. None of that pleases me because you still don't feed the orphans, clothe the widows, take care of each other, follow my commandments. You're still afraid to eat pork, and you'd rather sacrifice your children to idols. So that's why the Jews were very punished in Jeremiah's day, just like we're getting punished now, because it's the same thing. Everybody out there is sitting in their homes, smoking, drinking, fearing, hating, criticizing, anxious. So the only way out of that boat of the abyss of other people's thoughts of darkness and grafting yourself back on the tree is taking up the word I am, so you don't sit around in your house being terrified of existence, hating everything else outside of your periphery, and being greedy for just a little piece of bread. See, the world made people small these days. Small-minded, small in heart. And that's why this message is very strong for people strong-minded. You don't have to take anything from anybody because God is your witness. God is where you are. God witnesses what you do, what you say, how you behave. That's why God is 24 hours a day. While the rest of the world wants religious rites, creeds, ceremonies. They want to worship God once a week or something for an hour or two. Or remember God once a month and celebrate a festival. That's why God didn't really care about the Jews. Because they didn't care about him. They'd rather have this outer worship of nonsense, not eat belly back ribs, bacon, honey garlic ribs. Those are delicious. Thank you, Lord, for allowing me to eat that then. I'll kill and eat anything, actually. Except for what I don't want to eat personally. Oh, this personal. It doesn't like certain things now. I don't have to eat things I don't want to eat anymore, Lord. Why is that? Because now I have a sense of self that knows what's good for me and what it's not good, with an extreme amount of knowledge. See, I was weight training for a long time and I know how to eat food. It's all energy, just like God intended in the beginning, to convert matter into energy, not just to sit there and accumulate it. So this controlling of the belly as well. I suggest people control more of their appetites rather than their smoking behaviors or their drinking behaviors. There's a lot of people that are just overly saturated with the grocery store. What enter their mouth is the things of this world. And that's why they're fattened up for the gates of hell. Because they don't have any values within them. They're crippled in the mind and crippled in the body. That's like, I look out the window, right? The average Canadian. Yep, he smokes a lot of dope. He's in a wheelchair with a Canadian flag around him, driving himself about, going, "Oh, Canada." And "Oh, Canada" doesn't celebrate any God. There's no God in those people. That's why they're in these crippled conditions, looking like dead, empty branches off the tree of life. It's because they take up their own way. It's not what enters the mouth. You see, they could be smokers, drinkers, whatever, but they're not practicing God within their minds. That's what constitutes the godless. There's no commandments contemplating inside their head. There's no I am in their heart at all. There's no charity. No, it's just thinking about yourself and what you could get out of life, it seems. See, that's the mundane consciousness. Just this plundering of the senses. Just plunder your body, get whatever you can out of creation, and then you'll end up here after you quote unquote die, when humans weren't meant to die. You were meant to experience the void, which takes away death and hell. which all men are appointed to. All men are appointed to die, but if they follow the way, that's life eternal. So yeah, you could plunder your body, you could plunder your senses, you could plunder this creation, but there's where you go right after. Into one of these various retreats. Why are you getting punished? It's because of your ill religion. You didn't practice the way here while you had the choice. And now this hell is specifically designed for whatever ill religion you committed in your ignorance. While you wanted to plunder your senses, plunder your genitals, plunder creation, and tell other people not to smoke this, not do that. In your own hearts, you're miserable, vile, corrupt. See, that's why I don't go to the Christians. Because the Christians are vile, ignorant, and corrupt. They won't accept people that are free thinkers and read 20 Bibles. They still want their Old and New Testament. It's like the Book of Mormon said, Lord, you have 1,000,000 Bibles. I'm God for frig's sakes. How much Bible? You think they just have one Bible, you idiots? Yeah. And then go blaspheme the guy on the corner smoking dope because he's poor, you see? Or go blaspheme the alcoholic because he's drinking. Yeah, that's a Christian. That's what they do. They think they're better because they wear a suit and tie. Bunch of suit dummies. But in their hearts are vile and corrupt, full of criticisms, hatred. There ain't no love for your fellow man if you think your fellow man is corrupt too because he comes up with these things of drinking, smoking. See, an alcoholic or a drug addict, I could tell them the truth of who they are. I could preach them the gospel. Just exactly what I said there too. It's not what you could shoot up all those needles, buddy. It doesn't matter about that. What God cares about is you following the way. And then God will clean up your corrupt ways if you allow that to happen. But are the Christians willing to preach the gospel to the crackheads out in the street like I had to? There's bums at Tim Hortons. There's a few bums there. I walked by one day and I talked to the guy. Hey, what's going on? The guy was friendly. So I came back and gave him scriptures. Talked to him a little bit about the way, how he can get off the street if he followed prayer. And I never seen the friggin' guy after that too. Yeah, you could preach the gospel. See, you could preach it to crackheads, bums, and alcoholics. Doesn't matter what they do. That's what Master Jesus Christ came to do. He preached to the prostitutes, the unrighteous, the bums, told them about their divinity. And it's not what enters the mouth that defiles and makes a lie. Just like the Pharisees in the church. Yeah, they have their little worship, their rituals, and their ceremonies. Then the master has to go in there and kick them out of the church. What the hell are you doing in my Father's house? And they're like, who are you? Who are you? Who am I? Oh, who am I indeed? That's what the second coming's all about, when we'll all find out who I am. So that's it for now. I hope you guys had fun. Take care.